Nice tattoos.
What are those?
Did your boyfriend draw those for you? The mess hall
gentlemen.
exploded with laughter. 200 recruits watched as Sergeant Tyler Vickers grabbed 18-year-old Kira Ashford's wrist, yanking her arm up like a trophy. She didn't flinch. "What's wrong, little girl, gonna cry?" He traced the ink on her forearm with his finger. The compass rose. The Latin words. Markings that meant nothing to him. Everything to her. "Your daddy paid for these before he got himself blown up." The laughter stopped. Kira's eyes lifted slowly. And in the observation deck above, Master Chief Elena Vasquez, the ghost of Mogadishu, set down her coffee. That boy had just made the worst mistake of his life. The grip on her wrist tightened. Kira Ashford didn't pull away, didn't flinch, didn't give Tyler Vickers a single thing he could use. She'd learned that from her grandfather, the man who raised her, the Admiral who taught her that silence wasn't weakness. Silence was a weapon, and she'd been sharpening that weapon for 18 years. "I asked you a question," Tyler said, his voice dropping low enough that only she could hear. "Daddy get himself blown up. That why you're trying so hard to look tough?" The mess hall held its breath. 200 recruits. Fresh faces from across the country, all here for the same reason. Elite summer selection. The program that fed into special operations. The pipeline that turned ordinary kids into something extraordinary. Or broke them trying. Kira knew the statistics. 60% washout rate in the first 2 weeks. Another 20% by month's end. The ones who survived weren't always the strongest or the fastest. They were the ones who understood something essential. The mission wasn't about winning. It was about not losing yourself. "Let go of my arm," she said quietly. Tyler laughed. The sound was sharp, rehearsed. The laugh of a man who'd never been told no. His father was Senator Richard Vickers, the man who'd blocked military reform legislation for 15 years. The man whose signature protected instructors who hazed recruits until they broke. The man whose corruption had killed Kira's father. But Tyler didn't know that part yet. "Or what?" Tyler leaned closer. "You gonna cry, run to mommy? Oh, wait." His smile twisted. "You don't have one of those either, do you?" Something flickered in Kira's eyes. Not anger. Not pain. Recognition. She'd seen men like Tyler before. Her grandfather called them hollow vessels. People so empty inside they had to fill themselves with the fear of others. They didn't understand strength. They only understood the absence of opposition. "I'm going to ask you one more time," Kira said, her voice steady as stone. "Let go of my arm. Make me." The words hung in the air. At a corner table, Daniel Torres stopped eating. He'd been watching this girl since she arrived 3 days ago. There was something off about her. Not wrong, just different. She moved like someone who'd been taught to disappear. She spoke like someone who weighed every word on a scale. She watched everyone like she was taking notes for a test nobody else knew about. And those tattoos. Daniel knew military ink. His father wore it. His brothers wore it. The compass rose on Kira's left wrist wasn't a design you picked from a parlor wall. That was navigation certification, advanced survival training. The Latin words on her right forearm, per aspera ad astra. He'd only seen that phrase on one other person, a SEAL instructor who'd trained his oldest brother, an instructor who said she only marked operators who survived her resistance program. Daniel set down his fork. This girl was 18 years old. What the hell had she survived? Tyler's grip tightened again. "I'm waiting," he said. "Show me what those pretty tattoos taught you." Behind him, his two shadows moved into position. Marcus Chen built like a tank, cracking his knuckles with theatrical slowness. Jade Sullivan, dark-eyed and watchful, wearing the expression of someone who'd already decided the outcome. 3 against 1. Standard intimidation formation. Kira had trained against 5. But she didn't move. Didn't shift her weight. Didn't give any indication that her heart rate had changed by a single beat. "Your father," she said quietly, "is Senator Richard Vickers." Tyler's eyes narrowed. So in 2019 he blocked the Ashford Reform Act, the legislation that would have required psychological screening for training instructors. "What's your point?" "My point is that 2 months after your father killed that bill, an instructor at Camp Pendleton named Sergeant William Drake pushed a recruit named Marcus Webb until he took his own life. The investigation found that Drake had a history of psychological abuse, complaints dating back 8 years, all buried." Tyler's grip loosened slightly. "How do you know that?" "Because Marcus Webb was my father's godson, and because the Ashford Reform Act was named after my grandfather, Admiral Raymond Ashford, the man who spent his last 10 years trying to fix what your father keeps breaking." The mess hall had gone completely silent now. Even the kitchen staff had stopped moving. Tyler's face cycled through confusion, then recognition, then something that might have been the first seed of fear. You're Ashford's granddaughter. I'm the reason you're going to let go of my arm now." "Like hell I am." He yanked harder. And that's when everything changed. Kira's free hand moved so fast that later when the witnesses described it, no 2 accounts would agree. Some said she grabbed his thumb. Others said she touched a pressure point on his wrist. A few claimed she didn't move at all, that Tyler simply released her and stepped back like he'd been burned. What everyone agreed on was the result. Tyler Vickers, 6'2", 210 pounds of entitled muscle, stumbled backward, clutching his hand like it had betrayed him. "What the—" Kira stood perfectly still. Her arms hung loose at her sides. Her breathing hadn't changed. "Pressure point manipulation," she said calmly. "Specifically the median nerve cluster. Applied correctly, it creates temporary paralysis without lasting damage. Applied incorrectly, it can cause permanent nerve death." She picked up her fallen tray. "I applied it correctly, this time." Marcus Chen lunged forward. "You little— don't!" The voice came from above. Everyone looked up. Master Chief Elena Vasquez stood on the observation deck, her hands resting on the railing. She was 53 years old, gray threading through her dark hair, and she moved with the economical precision of someone who'd spent decades learning exactly how much effort each action required. Most of the recruits didn't recognize her. The instructors did. Captain Morrison went pale. Lieutenant Hayes took an involuntary step backward. Even the mess hall supervisor, a 20-year veteran named Betty, who'd seen everything, set down the serving spoon she'd been holding and made a small sound of recognition. "Ghost of Mogadishu," Betty whispered. The name spread through the room like a virus. Ghost of Mogadishu. The woman who'd led a 6-person team through 3 miles of hostile territory to extract a downed pilot. The woman who'd been shot twice and kept moving. The woman who'd become one of the first female Navy SEALs and then spent 20 years proving that the designation wasn't a mistake. The woman who'd trained more special operators than anyone else in the modern military. "Master Chief Vasquez," Captain Morrison managed. "We weren't informed." "No," Vasquez agreed. "You weren't." She descended the stairs slowly, her boots making no sound on the metal steps. When she reached the ground floor, the crowd parted for her like water around a stone. She stopped in front of Tyler. Sergeant Vickers, she said. Son of Senator Richard Vickers. Tyler straightened, trying to recover his composure. Yes, ma'am. The same Senator Vickers who's been blocking my reform proposals for the past decade. I wouldn't know anything about that, ma'am. Of course you wouldn't. Vasquez's eyes moved to his hand, still twitching slightly from Kira's technique. Tell me, Sergeant, what's the protocol for physical contact with fellow recruits during off-training hours? Tyler's jaw tightened. Prohibited, ma'am. And yet, you were just assaulting a recruit in front of 200 witnesses because you thought your father's name made you untouchable. Vasquez stepped closer. Is that accurate? Silence. Is that accurate, Sergeant? Yes, ma'am. Vasquez nodded slowly. Then she turned to face the room. Let me be clear about something, she said, her voice carrying to every corner. I'm not here on vacation. I'm not here for inspection. I'm here because this program has a rot in it. A rot that's been growing for years. A rot that protects people like Sergeant Vickers and destroys people like Marcus Webb. She paused. That rot ends today. The mess hall remained frozen as Vasquez turned back to Kira. Recruit Ashford. Ma'am, walk with me. They left together, the door swinging shut behind them. The silence held for another 10 seconds. Then it shattered. Did you see? Who is she? How did she do that? Ashford's granddaughter. Tyler stood in the center of the chaos, his face cycling through emotions too fast to track. Confusion. Anger. Something that might have been the first cold touch of fear. Marcus Chen moved to his side. Tyler, man. Who was that? Shut up. But I said shut up. Tyler's voice cracked. He looked down at his hand, still trembling slightly. This isn't over. That little freak thinks she can embarrass me. She has no idea who she's dealing with. Jade Sullivan appeared at his other shoulder. Tyler, maybe we should... Tomorrow, Tyler said, cutting her off. Combat assessment drill, 3-on-1. I already got Morrison to sign off on it. But after what just happened, everybody thinks she's some kind of prodigy. Tyler's smile was thin and sharp. Tomorrow we show them what she really is. Just a little girl with too much attitude and not enough skill. He walked away, Marcus and Jade falling into step behind him. At his corner table, Daniel Torres watched them go. Then he looked at the door Kira had disappeared through. Those tattoos, that technique, that complete absence of fear. He'd spent his whole life around military families. His father, his brothers, his uncles, he knew what trained operators looked like. And that 18-year-old girl moved like someone who'd been fighting her whole life. But fighting what and why? The hallway outside the mess hall was empty. Kira walked beside Master Chief Vasquez in silence, matching her pace, maintaining the 2-step distance that protocol required. They passed classroom doors and equipment rooms and notice boards covered with training schedules. Neither spoke until they reached the stairwell at the end of the hall. Vasquez stopped. Turned. That was sloppy, she said. Kira nodded. I know. You were supposed to stay invisible. Blend in. Observe and report. He mentioned my father. Vasquez's expression softened slightly. He did. He said... Kira's voice tightened. He said my father got himself killed, like it was a joke, like it didn't matter. And you let him see that it mattered to you. Yes. That's a mistake you can't afford to make again. Kira's jaw clenched. I know. Vasquez studied her for a long moment. This girl, this child, really. 18 years old with more training than most operators twice her age. Raymond Ashford's granddaughter. The last promise Vasquez had made to a dying man. Your grandfather, she said slowly. Taught you that anger was a weapon. Yes. But he also taught you that weapons can cut both ways. Yes. Tyler Vickers is going to come for you now. Whatever cover you had is blown. Tomorrow he's arranged a 3-on-1 combat drill. Morrison signed off on it because Morrison is exactly the kind of rot I'm here to expose. Kira's eyes lifted. You want me to lose? I want you to do what your grandfather trained you for. Which is... Vasquez reached into her pocket and pulled out a worn challenge coin. The surface was scratched, the engraving nearly faded. But Kira recognized it immediately. Her grandfather's coin. The one he'd given Vasquez 30 years ago when she was a young operator struggling to prove herself in a world that said women didn't belong. Your grandfather gave me this, Vasquez said, on the worst day of my life. I was 23. I'd just failed my first qualification attempt. The instructor told me I should go home and have babies, that the military was no place for someone like me. She pressed the coin into Kira's palm. Raymond found me crying behind the barracks. He didn't tell me to toughen up. He didn't tell me to ignore them. He told me that the people who doubted me were giving me information. They were showing me exactly what they feared. And fear, he said, is a map. Follow it to the source, and you'll find the weakness. Kira closed her fingers around the coin. Tyler fears you, Vasquez continued. Not because you embarrassed him, because you didn't react to his cruelty. People like Tyler need reactions. They feed on them. Your silence starves them. And tomorrow you show him what 18 years of Raymond Ashford's training actually looks like. Vasquez smiled. Your grandfather used to say that the best warriors don't prove their strength through victory. They prove it through restraint. Do you remember what comes after that? Kira nodded slowly. Restraint, she quoted, is what you show when you could destroy someone but choose not to. It's mercy, not weakness. And it's the only thing that separates warriors from killers. Good. Vasquez turned away. Get some sleep, Kira. Tomorrow's going to be a long day. She started walking, then paused. One more thing. Ma'am, your father, Lieutenant Commander James Ashford, he didn't get himself killed. He was killed by faulty intelligence that your grandfather spent 10 years trying to trace back to its source. He found the source 18 months ago. Kira's heart stopped. The source, Vasquez said quietly, was Senator Richard Vickers. Your father died because of intelligence that Vickers falsified to protect a defense contractor who was paying him. She continued walking. Tyler doesn't know, but he will. And when he does, he's going to have to choose what kind of man he wants to be. Just like you're going to have to choose what kind of woman you want to be. Her footsteps faded down the hallway. Kira stood alone, her grandfather's coin pressing into her palm hard enough to leave a mark. Her father. Senator Vickers. Tyler. The threads were connecting now. The mission her grandfather had started before he died. The mission he'd trained her for since she was 16 years old. The mission that had brought her here to this program, to this moment. She closed her eyes. In her mind, she heard her grandfather's voice. The last thing he'd said to her 3 days before the stroke took him. You're going to face people who hate you for who you are, Kira. They'll mock you. They'll try to break you. They'll use your father's memory against you. And when that happens, I need you to remember something. What? She'd asked. The anchor. She touched the small tattoo behind her ear. Anchors don't fight the storm, her grandfather had said. They don't try to overcome it. They simply refuse to be moved. They hold fast and they wait, and when the storm passes, they're still there. still strong, still unbroken. He'd smiled then, that rare, gentle smile that made him look like someone's grandfather instead of an admiral who'd commanded thousands. Be the anchor, sweetheart. Whatever happens, be the anchor. The barracks were dark when Kira returned. 60 beds, 60 recruits, most already asleep, their bodies too exhausted to stay conscious. She found her bunk and sat down slowly, pulling her grandfather's coin from her pocket. The metal was warm from her grip. Hey. She looked up. Daniel Torres stood at the end of her bunk, his expression uncertain. You probably don't want company right now, he said. But I just wanted to say, what you did in there, that was something. Kira studied him. Brown eyes, honest face, the kind of person who meant what they said. What did I do? She asked. You didn't back down, even when it would have been easier, even when everyone expected you to. That's not brave. That's just stubborn. Daniel smiled slightly. Sometimes stubborn and brave look exactly the same. He turned to leave. Torres. He stopped. Yeah. Tomorrow. The combat drill. Tyler's going to try to hurt me. Not just win. Hurt. I know. When it happens, whatever you see, whatever you think you understand, there's more to the story. Daniel nodded slowly. I figured. Just remember that. Okay. Okay. He walked away. Kira lay back on her bunk, staring at the ceiling. Around her, the sounds of sleep breathing shifting the occasional murmur of dreams. Tomorrow, Tyler would bring his crew. They'd circle her like wolves. They'd try to break her the way they'd broken others before. And she would show them what her grandfather had spent 18 years building. Not a victim. Not a fighter. An anchor. She closed her eyes. In 12 hours, everything would change. But first she needed to remember why she was here. Her father. Her grandfather. The reform they'd both died trying to achieve. The mission she'd been born to complete. Tomorrow wasn't about winning or losing. Tomorrow was about showing the world that strength wasn't measured in muscles or size or aggression. True strength was knowing you could destroy someone and choosing not to. True strength was mercy. True strength was the anchor that held fast while the storm raged. And Kira Ashford had been forged in storms her whole life. She touched the coin one last time. I'm ready, grandfather, she whispered. Then she slept. The alarm screamed at 0430. Kira was already awake. She'd been awake for an hour, lying still in the darkness, running scenarios through her mind. 3 attackers. Enclosed space. Tyler's ego driving the assault. Marcus's strength as the primary threat. Jade as the wild card, the one who'd wait, watch, strike when Kira's attention was elsewhere. Her grandfather had taught her to visualize combat before it happened. Every possible angle, every potential outcome, every way to end a fight without ending a life. War is chess, he'd said, but chess with consequences. Every move you make echoes. Choose your moves carefully. She sat up as the other recruits groaned awake around her. Today, she would choose her moves very carefully. The morning formation was tense. Word had spread through the barracks like wildfire. Everyone knew about the confrontation in the mess hall. Everyone knew about the 3-on-1 drill scheduled for 1,400 hours. Everyone knew that Tyler Vickers had been humiliated by an 18-year-old girl and was out for blood. What they didn't know was why. Captain Morrison stood at the front of the formation, his face carefully neutral. But Kira caught the way his eyes flickered toward her, the way his jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. He knew who she was now, and he was afraid. Good. "Today's schedule has been modified," Morrison announced. "Standard morning PT will proceed as planned. However, this afternoon's tactical exercises have been replaced with a special assessment." Murmurs rippled through the ranks. "Sergeant Vickers has requested a modified close-quarters combat demonstration, 3-on-1 format. Recruit Ashford has been selected as the single combatant." More murmurs, louder now. Daniel Torres caught Kira's eye from 3 rows back. His expression said everything. "This is wrong. You know this is wrong." Kira gave him the smallest nod. "I know. It doesn't matter." "The drill will take place in Training Circle 7 at 1400 hours," Morrison continued. "Attendance is mandatory for all recruits. Dismissed." The formation broke apart. Kira started toward the PT field, but a hand caught her elbow. "Hey!" She turned. Jade Sullivan stood there, dark eyes unreadable. "You should drop out," Jade said quietly. "Request a medical exemption. Say you twisted your ankle. Anything." Kira studied her. "Why would you tell me that?" "Because I've seen what Tyler does to people who embarrass him. Last year there was a recruit, Jenkins. He beat Tyler in a qualifying time trial. Nothing major, just a few seconds." "What happened?" Jade's jaw tightened. "Tyler arranged a similar drill. Said it was for training purposes. Jenkins spent 6 weeks in the hospital. Medical discharge. Career over. And nobody reported it. Report what? It was a sanctioned training exercise. Accidents happen." Jade stepped closer. "Look, I don't like you. I think you're arrogant and you're hiding something. But I'm not trying to end your career. I'm trying to win a spot in this program on my own merits. Tyler," she paused. "Tyler doesn't care about merit. He just cares about winning, at any cost." Kira held her gaze. "Then why do you follow him?" Something flickered in Jade's eyes, something that looked almost like shame. "Because his father can make or break careers with a phone call, and I don't have the luxury of principles." She released Kira's elbow. "Just think about it. Medical tents open until noon." She walked away. Kira watched her go. Jade Sullivan wasn't evil. She wasn't even cruel. She was just afraid. Afraid of a system that punished integrity and rewarded compliance. Afraid of men like Senator Vickers, who held power like a weapon. That fear was exactly what Kira's grandfather had spent his life trying to dismantle. And it was exactly what she was here to expose. Morning PT was brutal by design. 5-mile run, obstacle course, combat conditioning circuits. The instructors pushed hard, watching for weakness, looking for the recruits who'd crack under pressure. Kira ran in the middle of the pack. Not too fast, not too slow. Invisible. But she felt eyes on her the whole time. Tyler ran at the front, his pace aggressive, his movements sharp. Every few minutes, he'd glance back, finding her, marking her position, reminding her that he was watching. Marcus Chen stayed close to Tyler, his bulk moving with surprising grace. The two of them had trained together before the program. Kira had read their files. Same prep school. Same athletic programs, same entitled worldview that said strength was measured in how effectively you could dominate others. Behind her, Daniel Torres maintained a steady pace, not pushing, not falling back, just present. A silent witness. The obstacle course separated them. Kira scaled walls and crawled under wire and swung across rope obstacles with mechanical precision. She could have done it faster. Much faster. But speed would draw attention, and attention was a liability. Not yet. Not until the right moment. She was halfway through the course when she heard the scream. A recruit named Patterson had fallen from the climbing wall. Bad landing. The crack of bone was audible even from 50 feet away. Kira changed direction without thinking. She reached Patterson before the medics did, her hands already assessing the injury. Compound fracture. Tibia. The bone hadn't broken the skin, but it was close. "Don't move," she said, her voice calm. "I need you to stay completely still." Patterson's face was white with shock. "It hurts. Oh God, it hurts so bad." I know it does. Look at me." Kira held his gaze, her eyes steady. "What's your mother's name?" "What? Your mother's name? Tell me." Margaret Patterson." "Good. Where does she live?" "Ohio, Cleveland." "Tell me about Cleveland. What's it like in the summer?" Patterson blinked, confused, but the questions were working. His breathing slowed. The panic receded slightly. "Hot," he managed. "Humid. We used to go to the lake." The medics arrived. Kira stepped back, giving them space, but Patterson grabbed her hand. "Thank you," he said. "You kept me from losing it." Kira squeezed his hand once, then released it. "You're going to be fine. The bone's clean. 4 months you'll be back." The medics strapped him to a board and carried him away. Kira stood up and found Tyler Vickers watching her from 10 feet away. "Nice trick," he said. "Where'd you learn that Girl Scout camp? Combat medical training. The distraction technique prevents shock from escalating." "Is that what you're going to do this afternoon, distract me?" Tyler stepped closer. "Ask me about my mother, my childhood, my feelings. Would it work?" Tyler's smile was thin. "Nothing's going to work, Ashford. You got lucky last night. Caught me off guard. That's not going to happen again." "I didn't catch you off guard. I applied pressure to your median nerve cluster. There was nothing lucky about it." "See, that's your problem." Tyler leaned in. "You think this is about technique, about skill, about who's got the better training?" He shook his head. "This is about power, and I have something you don't." "What's that? Permission?" His eyes glittered. "Morrison signed off on a full contact drill. No protective gear, no point system. We go until someone yields or can't continue." He paused. "And my father made sure there won't be any cameras in the training circle." Kira's expression didn't change. But inside, something cold settled into her chest. No cameras meant no evidence. No evidence meant no accountability. No accountability meant Tyler could do whatever he wanted, and the official record would show nothing but a standard training exercise. She'd seen those records before, the ones her grandfather had spent years trying to unseal. Training accidents that left careers destroyed. Recruits who'd been broken physically and psychologically by people who knew they'd never face consequences. Tyler was following the same playbook his father had written. "See you at 1400, Tyler said. "Try not to cry too much. It's embarrassing." He walked away. Kira stood motionless for a long moment. Then she finished the obstacle course. Dead last. The mess hall was quiet at lunch. Kira sat alone as usual, but she felt the weight of attention from every direction. Recruits stealing glances, instructors pretending not to watch, the whole program holding its breath, waiting to see what would happen next. She'd barely touched her food when Daniel Torres sat down across from her. "You're not eating," he said. "Not hungry." "You should be. You're going to need the energy." Kira looked up. "Why are you here, Torres?" "Because somebody should be." He pushed a protein bar across the table. "And because I know what those tattoos mean." Her eyes narrowed. "What do you think they mean?" "The compass rose, navigation certification, advanced survival training. My brother has one just like it." He paused. "The Latin phrase." Per aspera ad astra. Through hardship to the stars. I've only seen that on one other person, a SEAL instructor named Vasquez. She told my brother that she only marks operators who complete her resistance training. Kira said nothing. That training takes 6 months minimum, usually longer. It breaks people, literally breaks them. Daniel leaned forward. You're 18 years old, which means you either started that training when you were 16, Kira said quietly. Daniel sat back. Jesus. I had a good teacher. Your grandfather, he introduced me to Vasquez. She did the rest. Why? Daniel's voice was genuinely confused. Why would anyone put a 16-year-old through something like that? What could possibly be worth? My father. Daniel stopped. My father was Lieutenant Commander James Ashford, SEAL Team 4. He died on a classified operation when I was 7 years old. The official report said equipment failure, but my grandfather never believed it. Kira's voice was flat, controlled. He spent 10 years investigating, pulling records, interviewing witnesses, following the money. And he found that the intelligence my father's team relied on was falsified. Someone deliberately gave them bad information, sent them into a situation they couldn't survive. Daniel's face had gone pale. Who? Kira held his gaze. Senator Richard Vickers. The name hung between them like a bomb waiting to detonate. Tyler's father, Daniel whispered. Tyler's father killed your father. Tyler's father protected a defense contractor who was selling defective equipment. When my father's team discovered the defects and threatened to report them, Vickers arranged for that team to receive intelligence that put them directly in the path of an ambush. Kira's jaw tightened. 8 men died. My father was one of them. The contractor kept his contract, Vickers kept his donations, and nobody ever faced consequences. Does Tyler know? I don't think so. He knows his father is connected. He knows his father protects him, but I don't think he knows the extent of what his father has done. Daniel ran a hand through his hair. So this afternoon, this isn't just about training. This is personal. It was always personal. Kira picked up the protein bar he'd given her. But not the way you think. I'm not here for revenge. I'm here to finish what my grandfather started. Expose the corruption. Reform the system. Make sure nobody else dies because men like Senator Vickers value money more than lives. And Tyler? Kira was silent for a moment. Tyler is a choice, she finally said. He can keep being his father's weapon, or he can become something else, something better. She unwrapped the protein bar. This afternoon, I'm going to give him that choice. What if he chooses wrong? Then I'll make sure he can't hurt anyone else. Daniel stared at her. This 18-year-old girl with the old eyes and the military ink and the weight of a dead father pressing down on her shoulders. You're not going to lose, are you? He said slowly. This afternoon. You're not even worried about losing. Kira took a bite of the protein bar. I'm worried about what happens after I win. The training circle was ringed with bodies, 200 recruits, a dozen instructors, and somewhere in the observation area, Master Chief Elena Vasquez watching without expression. The circle itself was 30 feet in diameter, marked with white paint on packed dirt. Standard close-quarters combat arena. No obstacles. No cover. Nowhere to hide. Kira stood in the center. Her jacket removed her tattoos visible for everyone to see. The recruits who hadn't noticed them before noticed them now. What is that? Someone whispered. Those markings. Military certifications, another voice answered. Real ones. I've seen them on operators before. But she's 18. Look at her arms. Look at the Latin. That's CRE training. Advanced resistance. How the hell? The whispers died as Tyler entered the circle. Marcus followed. Then Jade, 3 against 1. Captain Morrison stepped forward, his expression professionally neutral. But his hands were shaking slightly. "This is a modified close-quarters combat assessment," he announced. "Full contact, no protective gear. Match continues until one party yields or is unable to continue. Standard safety protocols apply." "What safety protocols?" Daniel muttered from the crowd. Morrison ignored him. "Combatants, take your positions." Tyler rolled his shoulders. Marcus cracked his neck. Jade bounced lightly on her feet, her eyes never leaving Kira. Kira stood still, breathing, waiting. "Begin." Tyler moved first. He came in fast, a straight jab aimed at her face. Classic intimidation opener. Maximum speed, minimum precision, designed to overwhelm. Kira sidestepped. His fist caught air. Marcus came from the left, wider, trying to grab. Kira pivoted, letting his momentum carry him past her. He stumbled, caught himself, turned. Jade circled, watching, waiting. Smart. Tyler attacked again. Harder this time. A combination jab cross-hook. Textbook military combatives. Powerful, predictable. Kira flowed through the gaps. She didn't counter, didn't strike, just moved. Always moving. "Fight back," Tyler snarled. "Stop running." She didn't answer. Marcus grabbed for her again. This time she let him catch her arm. His grip tightened in triumph. Then she applied rotation to his wrist, just enough pressure to the joint, and he released her with a grunt of pain. "What the hell?" "Aikido," Kira said calmly. "Joint manipulation, using your opponent's strength against them." Tyler's face reddened. "This isn't a demonstration. This is a fight." "No." Kira's voice was quiet, but it carried. "This is a lesson." She looked at Jade, still circling, still waiting. "You can stop pretending," Kira said. "I know you don't want to be here." Jade's eyes flickered. "I talked to Patterson," Kira continued. "The recruit Tyler put in the hospital last year. He told me something interesting. He said there were 3 people in that circle, but only 2 of them actually hit him. The third one held back, pulled her punches, even helped him afterward when nobody was watching." Jade went still. "That was you," Kira said. "Wasn't it?" "Shut up," Jade hissed. "You don't know anything. I know you're afraid. I know you think you don't have a choice. I know Tyler's father has something on your family, maybe a business connection, maybe a debt, something that keeps you under his control." Jade's face had gone pale. "How do you—" "Because I spent 2 years learning everything about the people who destroyed my father's team. Senator Vickers has a network, people he owns, people he controls, and you're one of them." Tyler lunged. Kira spun. But this time she didn't just evade. Her palm connected with his solar plexus, not hard enough to damage, but hard enough to stop him cold. He doubled over, gasping. She could have followed up, could have ended it right there. Instead, she stepped back. "Get up," she said. Tyler pushed himself upright, fury twisting his features. "You're dead. You hear me? You're dead." He rushed her again. This time, Marcus came with him. Kira moved differently now. Faster. More precise. She caught Tyler's arm and redirected his momentum, sending him stumbling into Marcus. The 2 men collided, tangled, fell. She stood over them. "Your father killed 8 men," she said, "including my father. He falsified intelligence to protect a contractor who was paying him. And he spent the last decade making sure nobody could prove it." Tyler's eyes went wide. "That's a lie." "It's not." Kira reached into her pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. "This is a copy of a classified intelligence report from February 2016. The original was altered before it reached my father's team. The alterations traced back to a source inside the Senate Intelligence Committee. Your father's office. She dropped the paper on Tyler's chest. My grandfather spent 10 years building that case. He died before he could see it through. But I won't. Tyler grabbed the paper, unfolded it with shaking hands. His face went white. This is evidence. Kira's voice was steady. The kind of evidence that sends people to prison. The kind of evidence that ends careers and destroys legacies. You can't. This isn't real. It's real, Tyler. Everything your father built is real. And it's all going to come down. The only question is whether you go down with it. Tyler looked up at her. For the first time since she'd arrived, she saw something other than arrogance in his eyes. Fear. Real fear. Not of her. Of the truth. What do you want? He whispered. Kira extended her hand. I want you to choose. The circle was silent. 200 people holding their breath. Tyler stared at her hand like it might bite him. Choose what? Who you want to be. Your father's son covering up his crimes, perpetuating his corruption. Or something else. Something better. Someone who breaks the cycle instead of continuing it. You don't understand, Tyler said. If I turn on him, he'll destroy me. Everything I've worked for, everything you've worked for was built on dead men's bones. Kira's voice was sharp. My father's bones. Your father took everything from me before I was old enough to understand what I'd lost, and he'll keep taking from people unless someone stops him. Tyler's hand trembled. Behind him, Marcus had gone still. Jade was crying silently, her carefully constructed mask finally cracking. I can't, Tyler whispered. I can't just... He's my father. And James Ashford was mine. The words hit Tyler like a physical blow. He looked at the paper in his hands. The evidence of his father's corruption. The proof of everything he'd spent his life trying not to see. I didn't know, he said. I swear I didn't know. I believe you. Tyler's head snapped up. You do. Your father is careful. He's kept you isolated from the worst of it. But you're not isolated anymore. Now you know. And knowing means you have a choice. She kept her hand extended. Take it, Tyler. Choose to be better than he made you. The circle held its breath. Tyler looked at her hand, at the tattoos running up her forearm, at the evidence of everything she'd survived. Then slowly he reached up and took her hand. The crowd exhaled. Kira pulled him to his feet. This isn't over, she said quietly, so only he could hear. The investigation is coming. Your father is going to face consequences. But you don't have to be part of his defense. You can be part of his prosecution. They'll destroy me. They'll try. But I have resources. People who can protect you if you cooperate. Why? Tyler's voice cracked. Why would you help me after everything I've done? Kira was silent for a moment. Then she said, because my grandfather believed that people could change. He believed that the sins of the father didn't have to become the sins of the son. He died still believing that. She released his hand. Prove him right. From the observation deck, Master Chief Vasquez turned away. Her phone was already in her hand. It's time, she said into the receiver. Begin the operation. On the other end of the line, someone acknowledged. In Washington, D.C., doors were about to open that Senator Richard Vickers had spent 30 years keeping closed. And his son had just become the key. 47 minutes after Tyler Vickers took Kira's hand, his father's world began to collapse. Kira didn't see it happen. She was in the medical tent, letting a corpsman check her for injuries she didn't have. Standard protocol after combat drills. But she felt the shift in the air. The sudden tension that rippled through the compound like electricity before a lightning strike. Something had changed. The corpsman's radio crackled. He listened, his face going pale. "You need to go," he said. "Command building. Now." Kira found Master Chief Vasquez waiting outside. "It started," Vasquez said. "NCIS executed simultaneous raids in Washington, Norfolk, and San Diego. Your grandfather's files were the foundation, but we've been building on them for 18 months. Bank records, encrypted communications, testimony from 3 contractors who decided prison was better than protecting Vickers anymore. How bad? Bad enough that the senator tried to run. They picked him up at Dulles boarding a private flight to the Caymans." Vasquez's expression was grim. He was carrying $2 million in bearer bonds and a passport under a different name. Kira absorbed this. The man who'd killed her father, who'd spent 30 years building an empire of corruption, was finally facing consequences. She should have felt triumph. Instead, she felt hollow. "Tyler," she asked. "In the command building. They're questioning him, not as a suspect, as a witness, but he's—" Vasquez paused. "He's not handling it well. I need to see him." "That's not advisable." "I don't care what's advisable." Kira met Vasquez's eyes. "I made him a promise. I told him I'd help if he cooperated. He cooperated. Now I need to keep my word." Vasquez studied her for a long moment. "Your grandfather would be proud of you," she said finally. "And furious. He always said your compassion would either save you or destroy you. Which do you think it'll be? Ask me in 10 years. The command building was chaos. Officers moving in tight clusters, voices low and urgent. Phones ringing constantly. The normal rhythm of the program completely shattered by the earthquake that had just hit. Captain Morrison stood in the hallway, his face the color of old ash. He saw Kira and flinched. "Recruit Ashford, I wasn't." "You signed off on a 3-on-1 drill with no cameras," Kira said flatly. "You knew what Tyler was planning. You enabled it." Morrison's mouth opened, closed. "The investigation will include your actions," Kira continued. "Every drill you approved, every injury you covered up, every career you helped destroy, because someone like Senator Vickers asked you to. I was following orders. That defense didn't work at Nuremberg. It won't work here either." She walked past him. Morrison didn't try to stop her. Tyler was in a small conference room, alone. The NCIS agents had finished their preliminary questions and left him to wait. He sat at the table staring at nothing, his hands flat on the surface in front of him. He looked up when Kira entered. "They arrested him," Tyler said. His voice was hollow. "They arrested my father." Kira sat across from him. "I know. He called me. On his way to the airport. Before they caught him." Tyler's laugh was broken. "He told me to deny everything. Said his lawyers would handle it. Said I just needed to keep my mouth shut and everything would be fine." "What did you tell him?" Tyler was quiet for a moment. "I told him I'd seen the evidence. The intelligence report you showed me. The one that proved he got those men killed." His hands curled into fists. He didn't deny it. He didn't even try. He just said, he said sometimes sacrifices had to be made for the greater good. The greater good being his bank account. Yeah, Tyler's voice cracked. 8 men died, 8 families destroyed, and he called it a sacrifice for the greater good. Kira watched him. This boy who'd been her enemy 12 hours ago. This boy whose father had murdered hers. "My father was 34 when he died," she said quietly. "I was 7. Old enough to understand that he wasn't coming back. Not old enough to understand why. Tyler looked up. I used to wait by the window, Kira continued. Every day after school. My grandmother would try to get me to come inside, eat dinner, do homework. But I'd just sit there, watching the driveway, waiting for his car. Her voice didn't waver. She'd told this story before in the dark hours of Vasquez's training when breaking down was part of building back up. It took me 2 years to stop waiting. 2 years to accept that the driveway would always be empty, and even then part of me kept expecting him to walk through the door. Kira, I'm not telling you this for sympathy. Her eyes met his. I'm telling you because I need you to understand something. Your father made a choice. He chose money over honor, power over integrity, his own ambition over the lives of 8 men who trusted him. Tyler's jaw tightened. But you're not your father, Tyler. You didn't make those choices. You don't have to carry his sins. What you do have to do is decide what kind of man you want to be from this moment forward. How? The word came out raw. How do I come back from this? Everyone knows who I am now. Everyone knows what he did. I'm finished. You're not finished. You're just beginning. Kira leaned forward. My grandfather spent his whole life fighting corruption in the military. He believed that institutions could be reformed, that people could change, that the darkness could be pushed back if enough good people refused to accept it. And look where it got him. It got him a legacy, a granddaughter who carries his mission, a master chief who owes him her career, and now maybe a senator's son who chooses to be better than his bloodline. Tyler stared at her. Why do you care? He asked. After everything I did to you? Everything my father did to yours? Why don't you just hate me? Kira was silent for a moment. Because hate is heavy, she finally said. And I've been carrying enough weight. The door opened. Marcus Chen stood in the doorway, his face uncertain. They want to question me next, he said. The NCIS agents. They're asking about everything. The drills, the hazing, what Tyler's father told us to do. Tyler went rigid. What he told you to do. Marcus looked at the floor. Your dad. He called me last month. Said I needed to watch out for you. Make sure nobody challenged you. Said there'd be opportunities for me if I kept you protected. He bribed you. I didn't think of it as a bribe. He said it was just how things worked, how the real military worked outside of training. Connections, favors, people looking out for each other. Tyler stood up slowly. My father paid you to be my friend. Tyler, was any of it real? Tyler's voice rose. Any of it? Or was everything just him pulling strings, making sure I never had to actually earn anything on my own? Marcus had no answer. Kira watched the exchange. The destruction of Tyler's worldview happening in real time. Every pillar he'd built his identity on crumbling to dust. Marcus, she said quietly. He looked at her. The agents are going to ask you hard questions about Tyler, about the senator, about everything you've seen and done since you got here. You have 2 choices. Lie to protect a system that was using you, or tell the truth and start building something real. Marcus's hands were shaking. If I tell the truth, I'm done. My career, my future. If you lie, you're done anyway. The evidence is overwhelming. Anyone who tries to cover for Senator Vickers is going to go down with him. Kira stood. But if you cooperate fully, if you help them understand how deep this goes, you might salvage something. Not your old life, but maybe a new one. Marcus looked at Tyler. Tyler looked away. I'll tell them everything, Marcus said. All of it. He left. Tyler sank back into his chair. How many others? He asked. How many people did my father buy? How many friendships, relationships, opportunities? How much of my life was just him manipulating things behind the scenes? Does it matter? Of course it matters. No. Kira's voice was firm. It doesn't. Because whatever your father did, whatever advantages he created, whatever path he paved, none of that changes who you are right now, in this moment. Making this choice. Tyler looked at her. You're not like anyone I've ever met, he said. I know. That's not a compliment. It's terrifying. Kira almost smiled. I know that too. The door opened again. Jade Sullivan stood there, tears streaming down her face. They found my brother, she said. The agents. They found where Senator Vickers has been holding him. Kira went still. Holding him? My brother owed money to people connected to Vickers. When he couldn't pay, they took him. That's why I... Jade's voice broke. That's why I did everything Tyler asked. Everything his father wanted, because they said if I didn't cooperate, they'd kill him. Tyler's face had gone white. I didn't know. Jade, I swear I didn't know. How could you not know? Jade screamed. He was using me, using all of us. And you just walked around like some kind of prince, never asking questions, never wondering why people did whatever you wanted. I thought people respected me. They feared your father. Jade was shaking now. Everyone feared your father, and you benefited from that fear every single day without ever once asking where it came from. Tyler had no response. Kira stepped between them. Jade, your brother. Is he safe? Jade wiped her eyes. They're extracting him now. The agents said he's alive. Scared, but alive. They're bringing him here. Then that's what matters right now. Your brother is safe. The people who took him are going to face justice. And you don't have to pretend anymore. Jade stared at her. How are you so calm after everything? I'm not calm. I'm just focused. Kira touched Jade's shoulder. Calm comes later, after the mission is complete. What mission? Tearing out the rot. All of it. Not just Senator Vickers, but everyone who enabled him. Everyone who looked the other way. Everyone who decided their career was more important than doing the right thing. Jade's eyes searched Kira's face. You planned this. All of it. Coming here letting Tyler target you the whole thing. Not all of it. Tyler's obsession with me was his own choice. But yes, I knew what I was walking into. And I knew what would happen when the truth came out. You used yourself as bait. I used myself as a catalyst. Kira's expression was steady. There's a difference. Master Chief Vasquez appeared in the doorway. Kira, we have a problem. The way she said it made everyone freeze. What kind of problem? Senator Vickers made a call before they confiscated his phone, to someone inside the compound. Kira's blood went cold. Who? We don't know yet. But whoever it is, they just triggered a lockdown. The compound gates are sealed. No one in or out. A lockdown under whose authority? Vasquez's jaw tightened. That's what we're trying to find out. But until we do, we're trapped in here. All of us. Including whoever Vickers called. Tyler stood up. My father has people everywhere. You don't understand. He's been building this network for 30 years. Military, intelligence, law enforcement. If he called someone here, then someone here is willing to do whatever it takes to protect him. Kira finished. The lights flickered, then went out. Emergency generators kicked in a moment later, bathing everything in red. All personnel, this is a code black alert. The PA system crackled. Remain in your current locations. Do not attempt to exit the building. This is not a drill. Vasquez's hand moved to her sidearm. It's starting, she said. What's starting? The senator's insurance policy. Vasquez's eyes scanned the hallway. He told me once years ago when he thought I was on his side that he'd never go down alone, that if anyone ever tried to expose him, he'd make sure they burned with him. What does that mean? It means whoever he called isn't here to cover things up. They're here to make sure no one talks. Vasquez grabbed Kira's arm. We need to move. Now. They moved. Through red-lit corridors past confused recruits and panicking staff. Vasquez led them with the certainty of someone who'd navigated hostile territory before. Where are we going? Tyler asked, struggling to keep up. Armory. If Vickers has an asset on base, we need to be prepared for a fight. A fight? This is a training facility, not a war zone. Everything's a war zone when powerful men feel cornered. Vasquez rounded a corner and stopped short. 3 figures blocked the hallway ahead. Kira recognized one of them, Lieutenant Hayes, one of the senior instructors. A man she'd marked in her files as a potential Vickers connection, but hadn't been able to confirm. Now she had confirmation. Master Chief Vasquez, Hayes said. His hand rested on his holstered weapon. I'm going to need you to come with me. On whose authority? Mine. Vasquez didn't move. That's not how authority works, Lieutenant. It is now. Hayes nodded to the men beside him. The Senator wants insurance. You and the Ashford girl have information that could destroy a lot of careers. Important careers. People who've spent decades serving this country. Serving themselves, you mean? Call it what you want. Hayes drew his weapon. Either way, you're coming with us. Kira stepped forward. Lieutenant Hayes, your service record shows 3 deployments, 2 commendations for valor, a distinguished career spanning 18 years. Hayes's eyes narrowed. How do you know my record? I know everyone's record. I've been studying this program for 2 years. Every instructor, every connection, every weakness. Kira's voice was steady. I also know that your daughter is starting college next fall. Georgetown. Pre-law. You've been saving for her tuition since she was born. Hayes's weapon wavered slightly. What's your point? My point is that you have a choice. Right now. This moment. You can follow Senator Vickers' orders, kidnap a Master Chief and an 18-year-old recruit, and hope that his network is strong enough to protect you when this all comes out. Or you can lower your weapon, step aside, and when the investigators ask, you can tell them you refuse to participate in the Senator's cleanup operation. Your daughter gets her education, your career survives, your conscience stays intact. Hayes stared at her. The men beside him exchanged uncertain glances. She's bluffing, one of them said. The Senator has this handled. He always has it handled. The Senator is in federal custody, Kira said, arrested trying to flee the country with $2 million in bearer bonds. His network is collapsing as we speak. Every person who tied themselves to him is going to have to answer for that connection. She let that sink in. But it's not too late for you. Any of you. Put down your weapons. Walk away. And maybe, just maybe, you'll survive what's coming. The hallway was silent, except for the hum of emergency generators. Hayes's weapon trembled. Then slowly he lowered it. Stand down, he said to the men beside him. Lieutenant, I said stand down. Hayes's voice cracked. She's right. Vickers is done. And I'm not going to prison for a man who would have sacrificed me without a second thought. The weapons came down. Vasquez exhaled slowly. Smart choice, Lieutenant. Now get out of my way. They moved past the 3 men who stood frozen in the red emergency lighting like statues of their own failed ambitions. Behind them, Hayes called out, Ashford! Kira paused. Turned. How did you know? He asked. About my daughter. About the choice I'd make. Kira held his gaze. Because my grandfather believed that most people, when given a real choice, will do the right thing. They just need someone to show them the choice exists. She turned away. He spent his whole life proving that. I'm spending mine continuing it. The armory was locked. Vasquez produced a keycard that shouldn't have worked on a training facility door. It worked anyway. "Questions for later," she said when Tyler opened his mouth. Inside, emergency lights illuminated rows of secured weapons. Vasquez moved with practiced efficiency, grabbing what they needed. "We need to get to the communications center," she said. "Restore contact with the outside. Let NCIS know what's happening in here." "And if there are more of Vickers's people between here and there?" Jade asked. "Then we go through them." Tyler stepped forward. "I want a weapon." Vasquez looked at him. "No." "Why not?" "Because you're untrained, emotionally compromised, and the son of the man who caused all of this. You're a liability, not an asset." Tyler's jaw clenched. "I can help." "You can help by staying behind us and not getting in the way." "That's not..." "Tyler." Kira's voice cut through his protest. "She's right. You want to help stay alive. Be a witness. Testify against your father's network when this is over. That's how you help." Tyler looked like he wanted to argue. Instead, he nodded. "Fine. But this isn't over." "No," Kira agreed. "It's not." They moved out. The compound was chaos now. Recruits huddled in groups, uncertain what was happening. Instructors barked contradictory orders. The lockdown had thrown everything into confusion, which was probably exactly what Vickers had intended. Confusion created opportunity. They were halfway to the communications center when Daniel Torres appeared. "Kira!" He was out of breath, his face tight with urgency. "Daniel, what are you—" "There's a team. 4 men. Heading for the server room. I heard them talking. They're going to destroy the evidence. All of it. Every file, every record, everything that connects Vickers to this program." Vasquez swore. "The server room's on the other side of the compound." "We don't have time to reach both," Kira said. "Then we split up. I'll take the communications center. You take the server room." "Alone." "Not alone." Vasquez looked at Daniel. "Torres, you willing to fight?" Daniel's jaw set. "Yes, ma'am." "Then you're with her. Jade, Tyler, Marcus, you're with me." She handed Kira a small device. "Emergency beacon. Press this and every law enforcement agency within 50 miles gets an alert with your location." "What about the lockdown?" "The lockdown only controls the gates. It doesn't stop signals." And Vasquez met Kira's eyes. "Your grandfather trained you for this. Everything he taught you, everything Vasquez put you through, this is why." Kira took the beacon. "I know." "Then go, save those files. And Kira..." "Yes." Vasquez's expression softened for just a moment. He would be proud. Raymond, he'd be so proud of who you've become. Kira nodded once. Then she ran. The server room was guarded, 2 men outside the door. Professional, alert, not military contractors probably, private security hired by Vickers for exactly this kind of situation. Kira assessed them from the shadows. 2 targets, she whispered to Daniel. "Armed, experienced. We can't take them head on." "Then what do we do?" Kira thought, her grandfather's voice in her head. "War is chess. Every piece has a purpose. Every move opens possibilities." "Distraction," she said. "Draw them away from the door. I'll go in through the ventilation access." "Ventilation? You're going to crawl through the vents." "I'm small. They're not designed for adults, but I can fit." Daniel looked at her like she was insane. "How do you know that?" "Because I studied the building schematics for 3 months before I arrived." Kira met his eyes. "I told you I planned for this." "You're terrifying." "I know. Create a distraction. 30 seconds. Can you do that?" Daniel took a breath. Yeah, I can do that." He moved. Kira watched him approach the guards, hands raised, voice loud and panicked. "Help! There's a fire in the barracks. People are trapped." The guards exchanged looks. "Stay here," one said to the other. "I'll check it out." "Both of you," Daniel insisted. "It's spreading fast. We need everyone." The second guard hesitated. That hesitation was all Kira needed. She was in the vents before they made their decision. The crawl was tight, dark, and disorienting. Kira moved by memory, counting turns, measuring distances. The server room was 40 feet ahead, left at the junction, straight for 20 feet, then down. She found the access point and peered through the grate. 4 men inside, working fast. One at a computer terminal, the others pulling hard drives from server racks. 2 minutes, one of them said. Then we torch it. Torch it. They weren't just destroying data. They were going to burn the entire room. Kira pressed the emergency beacon. Then she kicked out the grate. She dropped into the room like a ghost, her feet silent on the floor. The men spun, reaching for weapons. Too slow. She disabled the first one with a strike to the throat. Non-lethal, but incapacitating. The second came at her with a knife. She caught his wrist, twisted, and used his momentum to throw him into the third. The fourth raised a gun. "Stop!" Kira froze. "Hands up, now." She raised her hands slowly. "You're the Ashford girl," the man said. "Vickers warned us about you. Said you were dangerous. He was right. Doesn't matter now. Turn around. Hands behind your head." Kira turned. The man approached, gun steady. Professional. He wasn't going to make a mistake. "You know this is over," Kira said. "NCIS is already here. The evidence is already copied. Destroying these servers won't save your employer. Maybe not, but it'll buy time, and time is all we need." He was close now, close enough to touch. "I'm going to give you one chance," Kira said quietly. "Lower your weapon. Walk away. Live." The man laughed. "You're unarmed, outnumbered, and I've got a gun to your head. What exactly are you going to do?" Kira moved. 3 seconds later, the man was on the ground, his gun in her hands, his arm bent at an angle that would require medical attention. She stood over him, breathing hard. "That," she said. "I was going to do that." The door burst open. Daniel rushed in, followed by 2 NCIS agents who must have responded to the beacon. "Clear," one of the agents shouted. "Servers intact," Kira reported. "They didn't finish the destruction." The lead agent looked at her, looked at the 4 incapacitated men on the ground, looked back at her. "You did this?" "Yes." "You're 18 years old?" "Yes." The agent shook his head slowly. "Who the hell trained you?" Kira tucked her grandfather's challenge coin back into her pocket. A man who believed the truth was worth fighting for. 40 minutes later, the lockdown was lifted. Federal agents swarmed the compound. Arrests were made. Evidence was secured. The network Senator Vickers had spent 30 years building was systematically dismantled. Kira stood outside the command building, watching the chaos resolve into order. Daniel appeared beside her. "They're saying you saved everything," he said. "The servers, the evidence, all of it. It wasn't just me. Mostly you." Daniel paused. "What happens now?" Kira looked up at the sky. Dawn was breaking. The longest night of her life was finally ending. "Now we rebuild," she said. "The program, the culture, everything that was broken. We make it better. You make it sound simple. It's not. It'll take years, maybe decades. But it's possible." She turned to face him. "My grandfather spent his life proving it was possible. I'm going to spend mine making it permanent. Daniel studied her face. You're not going home, are you? After all this? I am home. Kira looked at the compound around them. This is where I was always supposed to be, where I can do the most good. And Tyler, Jade, Marcus, what happens to them? That depends on them. They have choices now. Real choices. What they do with those choices will define who they become. In the distance, Tyler Vickers was being led toward a transport vehicle. Not in handcuffs, he was cooperating. But his face carried the weight of everything he'd lost and everything he still had to face. He looked toward Kira. She nodded once. He nodded back. Then the door closed, and he was gone. You really think people can change? Daniel asked. Kira touched the anchor tattoo behind her ear. I think people can choose, and choice is the first step toward change. She turned and walked toward the building where Master Chief Vasquez was coordinating the cleanup operation. The sun was rising. Her grandfather's mission was finally moving forward, and Kira Ashford, 18 years old, carrying the weight of 2 generations of sacrifice, walked into her future without looking back. 3 weeks after Senator Vickers' arrest, the trial began. Kira sat in the 3rd row of the federal courthouse, her hands folded in her lap, her expression unreadable. She'd worn her dress uniform for the occasion. Not because regulations required it, but because her grandfather had taught her that appearance was communication. Today, she was communicating resolve. The courtroom was packed, media in the back rows, military brass in the front, and scattered throughout the faces of people whose lives had been shattered by the man now sitting at the defendant's table. Senator Richard Vickers looked smaller than she remembered. Prison had diminished him somehow. The expensive suits replaced by orange jumpsuit, the confident posture reduced to something hunched and defensive. But his eyes were still dangerous. He found her in the crowd and held her gaze. No shame, no remorse. Just cold calculation even now. Kira didn't look away. The prosecutor rose. A woman named Helena Cross, 53 years old, career military prosecutor with a reputation for taking down untouchable targets. Your Honor, Cross began, the prosecution will prove that Senator Richard Vickers, over a period of 30 years, systematically corrupted military procurement, falsified intelligence reports, and directly caused the deaths of American service members, including the 8 men of SEAL Team 4 who died in the Al-Rashid ambush of 2016. Murmurs rippled through the courtroom. We will present evidence of bribery, obstruction of justice, and conspiracy to commit murder. We will show that Senator Vickers built a network of enablers throughout the military establishment and that he used his political position to shield himself and his associates from accountability. She paused. And we will present testimony from his own son, Tyler Vickers, who has cooperated fully with this investigation, and will describe in his own words how his father's corruption destroyed lives and careers. The defense attorney objected. The judge overruled. The dance began. Kira watched it all with the patience of someone who had waited 11 years for this moment. During the first recess, Master Chief Vasquez found her in the hallway. You okay? Kira nodded. I expected it to feel different. Different how? I don't know. More satisfying, maybe. More like victory. Vasquez leaned against the wall beside her. Justice isn't satisfying. It's necessary. There's a difference. My grandfather used to say that. Where do you think I learned it? They stood in silence for a moment. Tyler testifies tomorrow, Vasquez said. He's nervous. Asked to speak with you. Kira's jaw tightened. Why? Because you're the reason he's doing this. You showed him there was another path. He's about to destroy his own father in front of the entire country. He needs to know it's worth it. Is it? That's not for me to decide. Or you. Vasquez pushed off the wall. But he asked, and whatever he's become, whatever his father made him, he's trying to become something else now. That has to count for something. She walked away. Kira stayed in the hallway wrestling with emotions she couldn't name. Tyler was waiting in a small conference room. He looked different than she remembered. The arrogance was gone. The entitlement stripped away. What remained was someone younger, more uncertain, more human. You came, he said. Vasquez said you asked. I didn't think you would, after everything. Kira sat across from him. What do you need, Tyler? He was quiet for a long moment. I need to know if I'm doing the right thing. You're testifying against a man who killed 8 people and corrupted half the military establishment. What part of that sounds wrong to you? He's my father. He's a murderer. Tyler flinched. You think I don't know that? You think I haven't replayed every conversation, every memory, trying to figure out how I missed it, how I didn't see what he was? You saw what he wanted you to see. That's not your fault. Then why does it feel like it is? Kira leaned forward. Because you inherited his world, his connections, his privileges. And now you're realizing that all of it was built on a foundation of blood and lies. Tyler's hands trembled slightly. When I was 12, he said, my father took me to a military ceremony, medal presentation. One of his contractors had developed new body armor that supposedly saved lives. My father gave a speech about patriotism, about sacrifice, about how this company represented the best of American innovation. He paused. That contractor was Harmon Defense, the same company that sold defective equipment to your father's team, the equipment that failed when they needed it most. Kira's chest tightened. I stood there and clapped, Tyler continued. I was proud of my father, proud to be his son, and the whole time people were dying because of what he'd done. You didn't know. I should have known. I should have asked questions. I should have wondered why people always seemed afraid of him. You were 12. I'm not 12 now. Tyler's eyes met hers. Tomorrow I'm going to get on that stand and tell the world what my father really is. I'm going to destroy his legacy, his reputation, everything he built. Yes. And I need to know that it matters, that it's not just revenge or spite or me trying to save myself. I need to know that something good comes from this. Kira was silent for a long moment. Then she reached into her pocket and pulled out her grandfather's challenge coin. Do you know what this is? Tyler shook his head. My grandfather gave this to Elena Vasquez 30 years ago, when she was a young operator who'd just failed her first qualification attempt. He told her that the people who doubted her were giving her information, showing her what they feared. She placed the coin on the table between them. He gave it to her because he believed in second chances. He believed that people could fail and still become extraordinary. He believed that the measure of a person wasn't their worst moment, but what they did after. Tyler stared at the coin. Your father never gave anyone a second chance, Kira continued. He used people, discarded them, and moved on. That's his legacy, destruction without redemption. She pushed the coin toward him. But that doesn't have to be your legacy. Tomorrow when you testify, you're not destroying your father. You're choosing who you want to become. You're choosing redemption over complicity. Truth over comfort. That choice matters. It matters more than anything your father ever did. Tyler picked up the coin. His fingers traced the worn surface. Your grandfather sounds like he was an incredible man. He was. Kira's voice softened. And he would have wanted you to have that. Not because you deserve it yet, but because he believed in what you could become. Tyler's eyes glistened. I won't let him down. I won't let you down. Don't do it for us. Kira stood. Do it for yourself. For the man you want to be. That's the only way it sticks. She walked toward the door. Kira. She stopped. Thank you. For not giving up on me, for seeing something worth saving. Kira turned. My grandfather taught me to look for the good in people, even when they're surrounded by darkness. He said that's the only way to change the world, one person at a time. She left. Tyler sat alone with the challenge coin, preparing for the hardest thing he'd ever do. The next morning, Tyler Vickers took the stand. The courtroom fell absolutely silent as he was sworn in. Cameras clicked. Reporters scribbled. The weight of history pressed down on everyone present. Helena Cross approached the witness box. Mr. Vickers, please state your relationship to the defendant. He's my father. And you're here today voluntarily? Yes. You understand that your testimony may result in your father's conviction for multiple felonies, including conspiracy to commit murder. Tyler's voice was steady. I understand. Then let's begin. Cross picked up a document. Mr. Vickers, I'm showing you Exhibit 47. Do you recognize this? Tyler looked at the paper. His face tightened. Yes, it's a letter from my father to the CEO of Harmon Defense, dated February 2016, 2 weeks before the Al-Rashid operation. And what does this letter say? Tyler's hands gripped the witness box. It says that my father will ensure the intelligence report regarding equipment defects is suppressed in exchange for continued campaign contributions. Gasps from the gallery. In other words, your father knew that Harmon Defense was selling defective equipment to the military. Yes. And he covered it up in exchange for money. Yes. And 2 weeks later, SEAL Team 4 deployed with that defective equipment. Tyler's voice broke. Yes. And 8 men died. Silence. Yes. Cross let the word hang in the air. Mr. Vickers, did your father ever express remorse for these deaths? Tyler was quiet for a long moment. When the investigation started, he finally said, I confronted him. I asked him directly if the allegations were true, if he'd really gotten those men killed. And what did he say? Tyler looked at his father for the first time since taking the stand. He said casualties were inevitable in war, that those men knew the risks when they enlisted, that their deaths were regrettable but acceptable losses. Acceptable losses. Those were his exact words. The defense attorney jumped up. Objection. This is hearsay, and I have recordings, Tyler said. The courtroom erupted. The judge banged his gavel. Order, order in this court. Tyler reached into his jacket and produced a small device. After Kira Ashford showed me the evidence, I started recording my conversations with my father. I have 14 hours of audio, including his admission that he falsified the intelligence report, including his plan to have evidence destroyed at the Norfolk training facility, including his orders to eliminate potential witnesses. Senator Vickers' face had gone white. You little traitor, he hissed. After everything I gave you. What you gave me was built on dead men, Tyler shouted back. You murdered 8 people and then spent 11 years covering it up, and you would have kept killing if no one stopped you. Order. The judge's voice thundered through the room. Senator Vickers, you will remain silent, Mr. Vickers. You will address the court, not the defendant. Tyler forced himself to calm down. I'm sorry, Your Honor. I apologize. The judge nodded. Continue, Ms. Cross. Cross took the device from Tyler. Your Honor, the prosecution requests that these recordings be entered into evidence and that a brief recess be called to review the contents. Granted. Court is in recess for 2 hours. As the room began to clear, Kira remained in her seat. She watched Senator Vickers being led away by marshals. She watched Tyler step down from the witness box, his shoulders shaking with suppressed emotion. She watched the defense team scramble their case collapsing around them. 11 years. 11 years since her father died. 11 years since her grandfather started his investigation. And now, finally, the truth was coming out. Daniel Torres appeared beside her. You okay? I don't know. He sat down next to her. Tyler was incredible up there. I didn't think he had it in him. People surprise you. Kira's voice was distant. When they're given the chance to be better, sometimes they take it. You gave him that chance. I gave him information. He made the choice. Daniel was quiet for a moment. What happens now, after the trial? Vickers will be convicted. His network will be dismantled. The people he protected will face their own trials. That's not what I meant. Daniel turned to face her. What happens to you? You've spent your whole life building toward this moment. What do you do when it's over? Kira considered the question. It's not over, not even close. One corrupt senator is just the beginning. There are others, systems, cultures, ways of thinking that allow men like Vickers to thrive. She looked at him. My grandfather started a reformation. I intend to finish it. That could take decades. Then it takes decades. Daniel studied her face. You know, most 18-year-olds are worried about college applications and first jobs, not dismantling institutional corruption. I'm not most 18-year-olds. No, Daniel smiled slightly. You're definitely not. The recess ended. The trial resumed. The recordings Tyler provided were devastating. Hour after hour of Senator Vickers incriminating himself, discussing bribes, planning cover-ups, dismissing the deaths of service members as acceptable costs of doing business. By the end of the day, the defense had requested a plea agreement. The prosecution refused. Senator Vickers will face the full weight of federal law, Helena Cross announced to the press. There will be no deals, no negotiations, no special treatment. The trial continued for 3 more weeks. Witness after witness took the stand. Contractors who'd been pressured into silence, officers who'd been threatened, families of the dead who finally had a chance to speak. Kira testified on day 12. She told them about her father, about her grandfather, about the 11 years of investigation that had led to this moment. She told them about the training circle at Norfolk, about Tyler's assault, about the lockdown and the attempted evidence destruction. She told them about the anchor tattoo behind her ear and what it meant. My grandfather taught me that anchors don't fight the storm, she said. They hold fast, they wait, and when the storm passes, they're still standing. She looked at Senator Vickers. This storm has passed, and we're still standing. The verdict came on a Tuesday. Guilty on all counts. The courtroom erupted. Reporters rushed for the exits. Victims' families embraced and wept. And Senator Richard Vickers, former chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee, was led away in chains to await sentencing. Kira didn't celebrate. She found a quiet corner of the courthouse and stood alone, watching the chaos from a distance. Vasquez found her there. It's done, Vasquez said. Your grandfather's mission is complete. One part of it. The most important part. Kira shook her head. The conviction matters, but it's not enough. Vickers was just one man. He had enablers, collaborators, people who looked the other way because it was easier than fighting. Those people are being dealt with. The investigation is expanding daily. And when the investigations end, when the trials are over and the cameras move on, what happens then? Vasquez was quiet for a moment. Then we do the harder work, building something better, training the next generation to recognize corruption before it takes root, creating cultures of accountability instead of complicity. That's what I want. Kira turned to face her mentor. That's what I've always wanted. Not just to punish the guilty, but to prevent there from being more guilty to punish. That's a lifetime's work. I know. Kira's eyes were steady. My grandfather gave his life for this cause. My father gave his life. I'm not going to waste what they sacrificed. Vasquez studied her for a long moment. I've trained hundreds of operators in my career. Thousands, maybe. I've seen talent and dedication and courage in every form. She paused. I've never seen anyone like you. Is that a compliment? It's an observation. Vasquez almost smiled. You're going to change the world, Kira, for better or worse, probably both. Then let's make sure it's mostly better. They walked out of the courthouse together. Outside, the sun was setting. Media trucks lined the streets. Protesters chanted. The machinery of justice ground forward. Tyler Vickers stood by a car waiting. When he saw Kira, he approached. It's over, he said. He's going to prison for the rest of his life. How do you feel? Tyler considered the question. Empty, relieved, sad. He paused. Free. Free. For the first time in my life, I'm not his son. Not the senator's boy. Not the heir to his legacy. Tyler looked at the courthouse behind them. I'm just Tyler, whoever that is. You'll figure it out. Maybe. He pulled out the challenge coin Kira had given him. I want to return this. Keep it. It belonged to your grandfather. And he would have wanted you to have it, to remind you of what you chose, what you became. Tyler turned the coin over in his hands. What are you going to do now? He asked. Continue the mission. Reform training programs. Root out corruption. Build something worth inheriting. That sounds exhausting. It sounds necessary. Kira met his eyes. What about you? I don't know yet. The trial destroyed my reputation. My family name is toxic. Everything I thought I wanted is gone. Then build something new. With what I have, nothing. You have a choice. Kira's voice was firm. That's more than most people ever get. A clean slate. A chance to become whoever you want to be without your father's shadow hanging over you. Tyler was quiet. You really believe people can change, don't you? I believe people can choose. And I believe choosing the right thing over and over eventually becomes who you are. A car pulled up. Vasquez leaned out the window. Kira, we have a briefing at Euro 600 tomorrow. The Integration Reform Committee wants your input on the new training protocols. Kira nodded. She turned back to Tyler. Figure out who you want to be, Tyler, and then become that person. One choice at a time. She walked toward the car. Kira, she paused. Thank you, Tyler said, for giving me a second chance when I didn't deserve one. Kira opened the car door. Make it count. She got in. The car pulled away. Behind them, the courthouse stood illuminated against the darkening sky. Inside, the paperwork of justice continued. Sentences would be handed down. Appeals would be filed. The slow machinery of accountability would grind on. But outside in the growing darkness, something else was happening. A young woman who'd spent her life preparing for this moment was finally looking toward what came next. Not revenge. Not justice. Legacy. Her grandfather's legacy. Her father's legacy. And now her own. The car disappeared into traffic. The story continued. And Kira Ashford, 18 years old carrier of burdens and builder of futures, drove toward the next chapter of a war that would never truly end. 5 years later, Lieutenant Kira Ashford stood at the podium of the Advanced Integration Training Program graduation ceremony. 62 graduates sat before her, the largest class in the program's reformed history, 40% women, 30% from non-traditional backgrounds, 100% capable. Behind her on the stage sat the people who had shaped this moment. Master Chief Elena Vasquez, now officially retired, but serving as a consultant. General Harrison, who had championed the reforms when others called them impossible. And Daniel Torres, wearing instructor insignia, his journey from uncertain recruit to confident leader complete. In the front row, wearing the same insignia, sat 3 faces that still surprised Kira every time she saw them together. Tyler Vickers, Marcus Chen, Jade Sullivan, once her enemies, now her colleagues. The transformation had taken years, countless setbacks, moments when it seemed like the old culture would swallow the new. But they had persisted. All of them. And now, looking out at 62 graduates who would never know the toxic environment that had nearly destroyed so many before them, Kira felt something she rarely allowed herself to feel. Pride. She began her speech. 5 years ago, I stood in a training circle and faced 3 opponents who thought they knew what strength looked like. They thought strength was size, aggression, dominance, the ability to make others feel small. She paused. They were wrong. The graduates listened with the intensity of people who understood that every word carried weight. Real strength isn't about winning fights. It's about knowing when not to fight. It's about restraint when you could destroy. Mercy when you could punish. Compassion when you could condemn. Her eyes found Tyler in the front row. Real strength is having the courage to change, to admit you were wrong, to become something better than what you were shaped to be. Tyler held her gaze. 5 years of work. 5 years of proving that the senator's son could become his own man. It showed in his posture, his expression, his presence. My grandfather, Admiral Raymond Ashford, spent his life fighting corruption in the military. He believed that institutions could be reformed, that people could evolve, that the darkness could be pushed back if enough good people refused to accept it. Kira's voice strengthened. He died before he could see that belief vindicated. But I see it now. I see it in every one of you. She looked across the assembled graduates. You are the proof that he was right. You are the future he imagined. You are the legacy he built and I inherited, and we now pass on to you. The ceremony continued. Awards were presented. Names were called. The formal rituals of military tradition played out with precision. But the real moment came after. The graduates dispersed across the parade ground, families embracing photographs being taken, tears being shed. Kira made her way through the crowd, accepting congratulations, answering questions, playing the role of commander that still felt slightly too large for her shoulders. She was halfway to the administrative building when a hand caught her arm. She turned. Tyler Vickers stood there, his expression complicated. Do you have a minute? They walked together to a quiet corner away from the celebration. 5 years, Tyler said. I've been trying to figure out how to say this for 5 years. Say what? Thank you. For everything. For not giving up on me. For believing I could be something other than my father's son. His voice cracked slightly. For saving my life. You saved your own life, Tyler. I just showed you it was possible. No. Tyler shook his head. You did more than that. You gave me a purpose. After the trial, after my father went to prison, I had nothing. No identity, no direction. Just the weight of his crimes pressing down on me. He paused. You could have left me to drown in that. You could have walked away. Instead, you pulled me into the reform program. Made me part of the solution instead of the problem. Kira was quiet for a moment. My grandfather believed in second chances. He gave one to Vasquez when she was ready to quit. She gave one to me when I was just a broken girl with too much anger. I gave one to you because that's how it works. That's how the chain continues. Tyler reached into his pocket and pulled out the challenge coin she'd given him 5 years ago. I've carried this every day since you gave it to me. Every time I wanted to quit, every time the work felt impossible, I'd hold this and remember what you said. What did I say? That the measure of a person isn't their worst moment. It's what they do after. Tyler pressed the coin into her palm. I think it's time I pass this on. The way your grandfather passed it to Vasquez. The way Vasquez passed it to you. The way you passed it to me. Kira looked at the worn metal. Who did you give it to? Recruit Jennifer Walsh, first-generation military, 18 years old, struggling with imposter syndrome, convinced she doesn't belong. Tyler almost smiled. Sound familiar? A little. I told her about you, about your grandfather, about the chain of people who believed in each other when no one else would. Tyler's voice softened. She's going to do great things, Kira, because someone believed in her first. That's what you taught me. Kira closed her fingers around the coin. It's not the same coin anymore. No, it's better. It has more history now, more meaning. Every person who carries it adds to its weight. They stood in silence for a moment. What are you going to do now? Kira asked. I've been offered a position, running a rehabilitation program for officers convicted of ethical violations, helping them find paths back to service, or at least to purpose. Using your own experience, using my own failures. Tyler met her eyes. I spent the first 22 years of my life being my father's weapon. I'm going to spend the rest of it being something else. Someone who helps people recover from the damage that men like my father cause. Your father would hate that. I know. Tyler's smile was genuine now. That's part of why I'm doing it. Kira laughed. The first real laugh she'd allowed herself in months. He's still in prison, you know? Still writing me letters. Telling me I'm betraying the family. That blood is thicker than water. That I owe him loyalty. What do you tell him? Nothing. I stopped responding 3 years ago. Tyler's expression hardened briefly. He made his choices. I've made mine. That's all there is to say. They walked back toward the celebration together. Kira. Yes. Do you ever regret it? Any of it, the mission your grandfather gave you, the path you chose, everything you've sacrificed to get here? Kira considered the question. I used to think sacrifice meant giving up things you wanted for things you needed, but that's not right. Sacrifice is transformation. You become something different than what you would have been. Something harder, maybe, but something truer. She looked out at the graduates embracing their families. I don't regret what I've become. I regret the cost of becoming it. But I'd pay that cost again if I had to. That's very philosopher for a 23-year-old. I had good teachers. They rejoined the crowd. Master Chief Vasquez was waiting near the administrative building. She looked older than she had 5 years ago. The gray in her hair had gone white. but her eyes were still sharp, still watching, still measuring. "Lieutenant Ashford." A word. They stepped away from the celebration. "You've done well," Vasquez said. "Your grandfather would be proud." "I hope so." He would be. Vasquez's voice carried absolute certainty. "I knew Raymond Ashford for 30 years, worked with him, learned from him, and the thing I learned most was how to recognize potential." She paused. "He saw it in me when no one else did. And I see it in you now. The same spark. The same refusal to accept things as they are when they could be better. I'm just continuing what he started." "No. You've gone beyond that. He dreamed of reform. You've made it reality. He imagined what this program could become. You built it." Vasquez's expression softened. "That's not continuation. That's creation." Kira didn't know what to say. "I'm retiring," Vasquez said. "For real this time. No more consulting. No more advice from the sidelines. Just quiet, rest, maybe fishing. You'll be bored in a month." "Probably." Vasquez almost smiled. "But I've earned the boredom. 40 years of service. It's time to let someone else carry the weight." "Who?" Vasquez looked at her directly. "You already know?" Yes. Kira did know. "I'm not ready." "You've been ready for 5 years. You were ready when you walked into that training circle at 18 and faced 3 opponents without flinching." Vasquez reached out and gripped Kira's shoulder. "Readiness isn't about feeling prepared. It's about showing up anyway. What if I fail? Then you fail, and you learn, and you try again. That's how progress works. That's how everything works." Kira took a deep breath. "My grandfather trained you. You trained me. Who am I supposed to train? Everyone." Vasquez released her shoulder. "Every recruit who walks through these gates. Every officer who needs to remember why they serve. Every politician who thinks they can use the military as a personal weapon. You train them all. That's a lot of people. You're a lot of person." They stood in silence for a moment. "Elena." Vasquez raised an eyebrow. Kira had never called her by her first name before. "Thank you. For everything. For training me. For believing in me. For keeping the promise you made to my grandfather. He asked me to look after you. I thought that meant keeping you safe." Vasquez's voice was rough with emotion. "Turns out it meant helping you become dangerous, the good kind of dangerous. Is there a good kind? The kind that protects instead of threatens, the kind that builds instead of destroys, the kind that makes powerful people nervous because they can't be bought or intimidated or broken?" Vasquez met her eyes. "You're that kind of dangerous now, Kira. The kind the world needs more of." She turned and walked away. Kira watched her go, feeling the weight of decades passing from one set of shoulders to another. Then she went to find Daniel Torres. He was with a group of new graduates answering questions, offering advice. The same guidance he'd received years ago now passed forward. When he saw Kira approaching, he excused himself. Hey yourself." They walked together away from the crowd toward the training circle where everything had started. The white paint had been refreshed countless times over the years, but the shape was the same. 30 feet in diameter. No obstacles. No cover. The place where warriors were tested and transformed. 5 years, Daniel said. "Feels like yesterday and forever ago at the same time." "A lot has changed. You've changed." He looked at her. The angry girl with the tattoos and the chip on her shoulder. She's still in there, but she's different now. Better or worse? Just different, more settled, like you finally found the place you were always supposed to be. Kira considered this. My grandfather used to say that home wasn't a location. It was a purpose. Something worth dedicating your life to. And this is yours. This program. These people. This mission. Kira touched the anchor tattoo behind her ear. Building something that outlasts me. Training people who will train people who will train people. Until the culture we've created is just normal. Until nobody even remembers there was a fight. Daniel was quiet for a moment. That's a big mission. It's the only mission that matters. They stood together in the circle, two people who had started as strangers and become something more. Not romantic. Not exactly. Something deeper. Partners in a cause that was bigger than both of them. I'm taking over when Vasquez retires, Kira said. Full command of the integration program. I know. She told me last week. And I think you'll be incredible at it. I also think you'll work yourself to death if someone doesn't make you take breaks. Is that an offer? Daniel smiled. Consider it a standing commitment. Someone has to remind you that you're human. I'm not sure I remember how to be human. Then I'll teach you. Fair trade. You taught me how to be a soldier. I'll teach you how to be a person. Kira laughed. The sound surprised her. Light, unguarded, almost young. Deal. They shook hands formally, then both laughed at the absurdity of the gesture. Come on, Daniel said. There's a reception and Vasquez will kill us both if we miss it. They walked back toward the celebration, but Kira paused at the edge of the circle. Daniel, wait. He stopped. Kira pulled out her father's dog tags. The metal was worn smooth from 20 years of handling. The engraving was barely visible, but she knew the words by heart. Ashford James R., Lieutenant Commander, USN. I've been carrying these since I was 7 years old, she said. Every day, every mission, every moment that mattered. She looked at the tags. I used to carry them for grief, then for anger, then for purpose. She paused. Now I carry them for memory, not the painful kind, the grateful kind. Grateful, my father's death gave my grandfather a mission. That mission shaped my entire life. It brought me here to this place doing this work. Kira's voice was steady. I'm not grateful he died. I'll never be grateful for that. But I'm grateful for what his sacrifice created. The chain of purpose that led to this moment. She pressed the dog tags to her lips. Then she tucked them back inside her uniform. Let's go, she said. We have a reception to attend. The reception was in full swing when they arrived. Kira moved through the crowd, greeting graduates and families, accepting congratulations, playing the role of leadership with practiced ease. But part of her remained detached, observing, thinking about what came next. She found herself standing near the memorial wall. A new addition to the facility installed 3 years ago. Names carved in stone. Dates of service. Brief epitaphs. Her grandfather's name was there. Admiral Raymond Ashford. And below it the words he'd requested before his death. Strength is not the absence of fear. It's the presence of purpose. Her father's name was there too. Lieutenant Commander James Ashford. And below it, he gave everything so others could give more. Kira traced the letters with her fingertip. Talking to the dead. She turned. Jade Sullivan stood there, 2 glasses of champagne in hand. More like listening to them. Jade handed her a glass. I never thanked you properly. For what you did during the lockdown. For what you told me in that hallway. You didn't need thanking. Yes, I did. Jade's voice was quiet. My brother is alive because of what happened that day. He's married now. Has a daughter. Named her Kira. Kira blinked. He didn't have to do that. He wanted to. We both did. You gave us our lives back. The least we could do was remember that. They stood together looking at the wall. Do you ever think about how it could have gone differently? Jade asked. If you hadn't shown mercy, if you'd just destroyed Tyler in that circle, instead of offering him a choice. Sometimes. And I'm glad I didn't. Not because Tyler deserved mercy. He didn't. But because destroying him wouldn't have changed anything. It would have just created another broken person in a world full of broken people. Kira sipped her champagne. My grandfather taught me that real victory isn't about defeating your enemies. It's about transforming them, making them allies, building something together that neither of you could build alone. That's a lot harder than just winning. Everything worthwhile is hard. That's how you know it matters. Jade was quiet for a moment. I'm transferring next month, running the peer support network at Coronado, helping recruits deal with the psychological pressure before it breaks them. Using your own experience, using my own pain. Jade met her eyes. You taught me that pain could be useful, that it didn't have to just hurt. It could shape you into something stronger. I'm glad. Me too. Jade raised her glass. To the girl with the tattoos. The one who changed everything. Kira clinked her glass against Jade's. To the people who let themselves be changed. They drank. As the reception wound down and the sun began to set, Kira found herself alone on the parade ground. The graduates had departed with their families. The dignitaries had returned to their offices. Even Daniel and the other instructors had gone to celebrate in their own way. Just Kira and the dying light. She walked to the training circle one last time, stepped inside, stood in the center where everything had started 5 years ago. She closed her eyes. In her mind, she saw her grandfather. Strong and steady, teaching her chess, teaching her strategy, teaching her that the true measure of a warrior was knowing when not to fight. She saw her father. A memory more than a presence, but real nonetheless. His smile, his voice, the way he'd looked at her like she was the most important thing in the world. She saw Vasquez, stern and demanding, pushing her past every limit she thought she had, then pushing further. Creating a weapon. Tempering a soul. She saw Tyler, Marcus, Jade. Enemies becoming allies. Antagonists becoming advocates. The proof that transformation was possible. She saw Daniel, patient and steady. The anchor she hadn't known she needed. And she saw herself. 18 years old, standing in this same circle, facing 3 opponents who thought they knew what strength looked like. They'd been wrong. Strength wasn't size or aggression or dominance. Strength was showing up when it was hard, making the right choice when it was costly, building something better than what you were given. Strength was the anchor that held when the storm tried to tear everything apart. Kira opened her eyes. The sun had set. Stars were appearing overhead. The same stars her grandfather had taught her to navigate by. The same stars that had guided her father on missions he never returned from. Per aspera ad astra, through hardship to the stars. She touched the tattoo on her forearm, then the anchor behind her ear, then the place over her heart, where her grandfather's initials were now permanently inked. 3 marks, 3 generations, 1 continuous purpose. Her phone buzzed. A message from Daniel. "Where are you, Vasquez?" is asking. Kira smiled. She typed back, "Coming, just saying goodbye to someone." She took one last look at the training circle, The place where she'd fought for the right to be heard. The place where she'd shown an enemy there was another path. The place where everything had changed. "Thank you," she whispered. To her grandfather. To her father. To everyone who'd shaped her and guided her and believed in her when she couldn't believe in herself. Then she turned and walked toward the lights of the facility. Behind her, the memorial wall held its names in patient silence. Ahead, the future waited, uncertain and demanding, and full of work yet to be done. Kira Ashford walked between them. Past and future. Memory and mission. The weight of what was lost, and the promise of what could be built. She was 23 years old. She carried her grandfather's legacy, her father's memory, and her own purpose. She was the anchor that held. And she was just getting started. The story didn't end there. Stories like this never really ended. They just transformed into the next chapter, the next challenge, the next opportunity to prove that people could change and institutions could evolve and the darkness could be pushed back. But that night, walking toward the people who had become her family, Kira allowed herself one moment of peace. She had done what her grandfather asked. She had honored what her father sacrificed. She had become what Vasquez believed she could be. And tomorrow she would wake up and do it all again. Because that was the mission. Because that was the purpose. Because that was legacy. Not something you inherited. Something you built. One choice at a time. One recruit at a time. One transformation at a time. Until the world looked different than it had before. Until the people who came after couldn't even imagine what had been sacrificed to get them there. That was the anchor's job, to hold fast, to endure, to remain even when the storm seemed endless. Kira Ashford had learned that lesson well, and she would spend the rest of her life teaching it to others. The door opened. She stepped through. And the story continued, as all true stories do, into something larger and more lasting than any single person could imagine. Not an ending, a beginning. The best kind of legacy there is.